Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I am Eric Kane with Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis. As always, big thank you to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. Exterior Home Solutions is East Tennessee's first choice in roofing. Use your trusted local source for your exterior home renovations today by giving a call for a free estimate at 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got a full bank of questions on this week, a massive week. Tennessee's going to be on the road at Missouri. We continue to preview that, but now we hit the mailbag. We will start with Doolittle Vol. What is the most likely bowl destination for Tennessee at 8-4, 9-3, 10-2? Something we've been discussing a little bit this week, Brent. Out in the hallways over there at the complex.
Well, I think it depends on what happens around Tennessee, not just what Tennessee does, but I think it's how many get in the playoff, how many get in New Year's Six, where's Ole Miss at? Tennessee's attractive. There's no question about that. If they get to 9 wins, are they assured a Citrus Bowl spot? You would, on the front end, probably think that. But again, I think it just depends on how the rest of the league kind of plays out, what the playoff situation looks like right now. I mean, who's in, who's out, how many get in, and how many get in the New Year's Six.
See, I think if they can win this weekend and lock in 9, because we're all just chalking up the Vanderbilt game, right? Then I think that they're at Florida no matter what, because that means they're going to have a head-to-head over Missouri, who's another comparable team. A lot of those West teams don't ship to Florida a ton. And again, Hubbs is right. Last year they had, 2 teams in the playoff, or 1 team in the playoff, 2 teams in the New Year's Six. Other years, they've had 2 teams in the playoff, 1 team in the New Year's Six, but they've always kind of had that 3. Do they get 3 this year? Because, it is a down team or a down year in the conference. And you look at, the Pac-12, do they get 2 this year, versus 1? What about, the Big Ten? Because Penn State's going to keep winning. What does that look like, as far as Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State? Do they get 3 in the New Year's Six /playoff? I think a lot of that will determine kind of how this thing goes. The good news is the ACC is kind of, going to probably just have 1 with Florida State. I think that helps the SEC get back to potentially having 3 again.
Nashville 615 says the Vols don't have a wide receiver in the top 10 in the SEC in receiving yards. Am I wrong to say that Tennessee has a bunch of just average guys at wide receiver? How do they approach fixing that in the offseason? He says knows the quarterback play could be better under Nico next year as well. Rob, you want to take a stab at that?
I don't think they have any elite guys at wide receiver. I don't think they're, I think the young guys like, Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod, have potential. Dante Thornton is not what we thought he was. And I guess for my money, if I was going to say long-term, the best guy out there, I would take Squirrel. But can you have a go-to guy that's his size? I guess would be my question about Squirrel. If you're going to have somebody that really carries your passing game, can it be somebody that I'm not saying it can't? I'm saying it would be unusual, but I don't think he's really there yet. And I just don't. You look at there's not a Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman out there right now, and that's not an. You're talking about two NFL guys. They're just not. Brew probably was close to that level, but I would just say there's not as talented there as they have been. I don't think they're being poorly coached or underachieving necessarily. I guess maybe you could say they're underachieving, but I don't think there's a lot of guys out there that aren't living up to their talent aside from Dante Thornton. And is that a fit thing? Is that him just not finding his niche yet?
Well, I think and Rob, you had this stat. I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to hang on it for a while. When you're averaging, 6 yards per attempt in the passing game, it's hard to put somebody atop the leaderboard in receiving. Now, the last couple of games, Tennessee start to stretch the field a little bit more. That would get some of those numbers up. But early on in this passing game, it was sideways. You weren't throwing. You still haven't thrown for 300 yards at the quarterback position. You're just not as explosive as you were a year ago. Is that all the receivers? Is that Joe? Is that play calling? Yes. Is kind of where that is in my opinion. So we'll see what they do the next couple of weeks here and how it gets going that way, and then how explosive do they become next year at the receivers in the passing game, not just at the receiver spot.
I missed Denarius Moore. What is the heart of the interior D-line's inability to generate pressure right now? Is it technique, effort, superior interior offensive line, just bad luck? Of course, that would be some holding calls. Seems like they are the key to the pass rush. Austin, that's something we've talked about a lot this week, and it's been there. I mean, earlier in the season, you were getting good push from Omar Norman-Lott, Amari Thomas, Bryson Easton, some of those guys. But here lately, in terms of the whole pass rush, since really the first half against Alabama, it's not been as relevant that it has been so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think teams are doing a lot of max protect, and I think that there's been plenty of holding that just has went uncalled. So, I think that when you look at it, it's a couple of different factors, but the poster's right. Like, they're the key, because when Tennessee's pass rush gets home or affects the play, Tennessee's secondary is all of a sudden not too bad. If the quarterback has all day to throw, even a phenomenal secondary can only hold up so long. So, the pass rush, the interior, the edges, all those will be really, really important, really the next 2 weeks, but specifically this week in a game that, Tennessee has a real chance to go on the road and win.
007 Vol says, Joe has been clicking the past few weeks. Was there a turning point? Was there maybe an offensive adjustment to better suit him? Brent, I think obviously we talk about Joe in the run game, and that kind of got him going the more they ran him. I think at halftime of the A&M game or whatever game it was, I think somebody got at him and said, dude, run, use your body. But the fact that they're drawing up some plays for him early in the football game, I think that's something. But yeah, Joe is clicking right now. He's playing efficient. He's being accurate with the football. He's throwing off platform. This is good, Joe Milton, and that's something you didn't see a lot earlier in the season, and something we've also mentioned. Those receivers have gotten better too.
Well, I mean, I think Rob, running and getting hit certainly helps him kind of get going and gets his mind right, if you will. But you've heard multiple people talk about it, and even Joe's kind of hinted at it a little bit. Just better preparation. The more, not just more hours, but preparing better to play and managing and understanding the game plan better. I mean, I think Joe had a decision to make coming out of Texas A&M. When you're 50%, you throw for 100 yards, you're opening yourself up for whether or not you're going to be the guy, you're not going to be the guy. And Rob, to his credit, I think he put his head down and probably went to work, cleaned up some things, and it showed up the last 3 weeks. Now, will it show up the rest of the way? We'll have to go see. But he's clearly looked like a total different quarterback, not just with his runs, but I think just in the way that he's played the football game and all facets of it. He looks different since A&M.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about him, because after coming out of A&M, I couldn't say enough bad things about him, and so I want to be sure to give. I mean, seriously, I mean, I want to be sure to give credit. I want to be sure to give credit, for the kid, turning it around, because I would have never seen this coming, 100%. Just did not. After the A&M game, I didn't think the guy that we saw play quarterback the last 2 weeks was in there. I mean, it's the difference has been dramatic. And, I give him credit. I give Coach Heupel credit. I mean, you're talking about accuracy, decision-making, pushing the ball down the field. No interceptions the last 2 weeks. He had a turnover at Alabama, but that was, a blindside strip sack, not an interception. After he'd thrown one in his first 3 SEC games, or at least one. And, I mean, I give credit to him. And I have to think, I don't know this. I got to think Josh had a hand in it too. Coming out of the A&M game, just how just indecisive and unconfident he looked. I have to think the head coach, played a role in it. I don't know what it was, and I'm speculating a little bit, but I got to think that there was some kind of a conversation there that was pretty deep.
Well, and it feels a little Crompton-esque from the Lane year, to be honest with you. Kind of a mid-year kind of aha type deal like Jonathan had. I think the other thing too is he probably played a couple of teams, AP and Eric, that Josh has had good success moving the ball against. And that includes Alabama, for all the people that Art Briles offense doesn't work against Nick Saban. Well, I mean, this guy's put up a bunch of yards against Nick Saban. Josh Heupel has since he's been here, not just this past year. I mean, they had guys open in year one down there when they were so one-handed, if you will, going into that game. But I think they've got some things that work against that defense. they obviously in the Kentucky game for 3 years now have just big played Kentucky to death, right? And so probably some of the structures, some of that stuff has also helped Milton get going because they've got something that works against those defenses. Maybe that's a part of it too, but I'm with Rob. You got to give all the credit to Joe Milton.
I think the again, design runs, getting him going on the run game, I think that's helped. I think the offensive line getting healthier to an extent and getting your center back and getting him, 2 games in, 3 games in, 4 games in. I mean, he's about to get to midseason form here as Cooper Mays. I think that's helped. I think Squirrel White's been his best friend. I mean, Ramel Keaton's been up and down. Dante Thornton is starting to come up, which is great to see. Brew McCoy's out, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Squirrel White's been good. Squirrel White's been good. Yeah.
He has, but I mean, listen, Squirrel White wasn't bad at the beginning of the year. The problem is he had to climb the ladder to catch the ball, or he had to slide to catch the ball, or he had to reach behind him to catch the ball. I mean, Joe wasn't getting it wasn't jailbreak city on the offensive front. I mean, Joe was a lot of Joe self-inflicted wounds with inaccuracies. And for the last 3 weeks, he's been more accurate, and they've thrown the ball further down the field. And I think the receivers are on a better page with him, so I give them credit. But fundamentally, Joe's been significantly different the last 3 weeks than he was the first part of this year.
And that's something Joey Halsley said to me before on the Ball Network interview before the game they just played, Connecticut. He said, hey, it's just changing minor things in its mechanics, and you're seeing the fruits of that labor. Going in on that note, Heupel's Hype Man's got a couple, but the second question, how many design quarterback runs do you think Tennessee will call for Milton this week? He seems to play better when he runs the football early and gets hit. That was a question we had in the Monday night chat, Rob, but I think the number somebody threw out there was 7.5. I would say under that number in terms of designed quarterback runs, but I bet Joe Milton will run the football, 8, 11 times in this football game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see, 8 called runs, but I don't have a lot to add, Eric. I think he's going to run it 10, 12 times, which has pretty much been the case. I guess Kentucky, Alabama played a half against UConn. He's just been a more willing runner. It's just been completely apparent. I guess, really start with Alabama, but I'd go back to Texas A&M as well, kind of starting there, but it's dramatically changed the offense.
If Missouri's defense plays a quarterback run like they did against LSU, he might have 50.
Yeah.
Right, AP? Jayden Daniels did whatever he wanted to do running the football.
Now every time
that was an afternoon game, and every time I flipped it over there, I thought it was Sports Center, but no, it was just Jayden. It was Jayden Daniel on 3rd and 7. Just going crazy.
If McCoy and Thornton do end up leaving this year, which I don't think that Thornton's going to leave Austin, but if they do end up leaving this year, who do you think the whole wide receivers are going to be next year aside from Squirrel White? Essentially, what do you see right now, that receiver group? Of course, we don't know about Brew McCoy yet. What do you think those receivers look like in 2024?
Well, I don't think Thornton's going anywhere, so I think that talking about that just seems silly to me. I think Brew's a coin flip to return. The 2 sophomores, obviously going to add, Staley and Mike Matthews. And then we'll see what happens, whether they add from the portal, or they add another high school kid. They just got to get more bodies in that room. They need to see Nathan Leacock continue to progress and actually be someone they can count on next year. All that stuff matters. They just need more bodies in that room. Right now, they're kind of making it happen with smoke and mirrors from a standpoint of depth. But 3 games to go, it looks like they'll be fine to get through the season. And then, does Dante Thornton make a huge step next year now that he's predominantly outside? All of a sudden, does he slip over to where Ramel Keaton is if Brew comes back? And we'll see about that. But, Jalen Hyatt was just okay Heupel's first year here. And then it clicked and he, took off. I'm not saying he's going to go win the Blitnikoff Award. I'm just saying, how much more confident does he feel in a second year in the system and playing outside where he clearly is more comfortable?
Yeah, or does he get more comfortable playing inside, having a better feel for the offense if he can stay healthy and go through a spring practice and a fall camp, which he couldn't do? I don't know that. I think he's an outside guy ultimately. But I look at them and, who's going to be the slot guy besides Squirrel White? That's the one question mark I have about this team at the receiver position. Chaz Nimrod could slide in there and play some, I think, in the slot. but who is their slot guy other than Squirrel White? I know Mike Matthews long-term is going to be a slot, right, AP?
That's what I was going to say.
I think he starts out at outside.
Right, because it's so much harder to learn the inside than the outside. Yeah. So who is the other inside guy behind Squirrel White for next year? And a quick note on Thornton, I don't think he's going anywhere. And part of this is, one, he's already used his transfer. Two, he's not going to be able to be a grad transfer. So if he went somewhere, he'd have to go down. And I don't think he's got any interest in doing that. So I think he's going to be back on Tennessee's roster next spring.
Volunteer for Life says, if I remember correctly, Willie Martinez's contract was not extended last year. That is correct. Was he the only assistant coach not extended? And do you believe there might be a coaching change or two for the next season? And if so, who do you think those might be? Brent, Willie Martinez, a couple of those guys got extensions, maybe all of them. I know 3 or 4 for sure got extensions and raises. Martinez got a raise, did not get an extension. This is his last season under contract.
Everybody's on a multi-year deal at Tennessee except for Willie Martinez. Now, what does that mean? We'll find out at season's end and kind of where that goes from there. But everybody else is on a multi-year deal. And in terms of somebody, staff changes, I think we talked about this maybe the last mailbag podcast, or maybe we had this question on the Rewind Sunday night. I don't see anybody in the offensive staff going anywhere. Defensively, if somebody had an opportunity they felt like was too good to pass up, maybe Jerry Mack, if he had an opportunity he felt was too good for him to pass up. These guys are well compensated. I don't think this is a bad work environment in any way, shape, or form. And so I don't think there's guys looking to get out of town as fast as they can to take the first thing out of town. Alex Golish wasn't unhappy here, AP. He was just hell-bent on being a head football coach. And he was going to take a head job wherever he could get a head job. And kudos for him. He was ready to be a head coach, and he was taking that not because he was unhappy, but he was ready for the next step. I'm not sure there's anybody that has that same sense of urgency on this staff right now. Not that they're complacent or just resting around, but I'm not sure anybody's jumping on the first thing coming through town for them.
Yeah, they're all in. They're all going to go. I mean, defensively, does Tim Banks get a look? And I don't think he's going to rush to go take just anything. BJ, I think, again, you bring up well compensated. His kids are at a current stage in life where I'm not sure he's just looking to, bolt out of here. Him and his family are really comfortable here. Rodney's not going anywhere. He's loving the fact his daughters are at UT and he gets to be around them every day. Got one that works in football. The other 2 are on the rowing team. Eckler's not going anywhere. To me, it would be Jerry Mack, and then what happens with Willie, just because, he is at the end of a deal. I think, secondary holding up, Saturday definitely helps Willie's cause, to be back next year. Because on the whole, the secondary's played pretty well when they haven't been playing zone, and Tennessee's not got a pass rush like at Kentucky.
Volunteered 87 says, are they going to ever release the 2024 football schedules at some point? Brent, I asked about that a couple weeks ago, and I was told, essentially after the regular season, November, December, late November, December at some point. Have you heard anything different?
It's a made-for-TV event. Whenever the SEC network's ready for they need, they don't have a basketball window. Maybe they do it in and around the conference championship game weekend. I think it's done. When probably some people who know what it is at this point or have a good idea what it's going to be, but they're going to do that as a made-for-TV event, which is what a lot of these things, are and have become. So we'll know it the next month, I think.
I tell you what is going to be an underrated, I don't think a lot of people are talking about, fantastic aspect of the new deal are going to be the announced TV times ahead of the year. How many? It's not 100%. How many are there? I bet you know the details.
I think there'll be about half of the conference schedule start times will be announced before the season starts. It's a little bit like what the NFL does with some flex scheduling, where they can flex the back half of the year for like the Sunday night game. There'll be a little bit of a flex scheduling deal for the back half of the season. Some will be locked in because it's a game they're going to want, but they can flex some of that stuff. But you're going to have a real idea of whether you're going to play at night or whether you're going to play in the afternoon. because the window movement's going to be very subtle. It's not going to be like, hey, you might play at noon or you might play at 9 p.m. you know,
Yeah, you can only get if you have a kickoff time, you can only get moved one slot. And if you're kicking off at noon, they can't move you to 7:30. You could go to 3:30, but you couldn't go to 7 or vice versa.
Yeah, it's going to be better than what we had this past weekend where we were sitting around on Sunday waiting to figure out what your travel plans were going to be 6 days from now because you're waiting on CBS to make a decision. So it'll get better from that. Now it's going to be a bunch more night games, okay, which everybody's going to like early in the year for the light shows and the warm weather, and then some people aren't going to like those night games, including head coaches, in the back half of the year when there's a lot more night because you don't have that 3:30 window to play in. So there's going to be some more night games, I think, than we've ever seen in the SEC.
Rob, it's kind of like, when you take Hubs to play golf and he goes birdie, birdie, birdie on the first 2 holes. And
then he woke up.
Or first 3 holes. And then I go, hey, Hubs, you got to move back a couple of tees, man. You're playing too far up. And he's like, well, no, I can only move back 1 tee.
One slot.
That's exactly right. It's a decision to me on the hybrid. I'm playing a hybrid of the women's tees and the senior tees, or the forward tees. Excuse me, you can't call them women's tees. The forward tees and the senior tees. That's my hybrid on the golf course.
Come on, Hubs. It's 2023, man. You're better than this. We got plenty more in the mailbag questions. The mailbag will be emptied here as we continue on. But first, a quick word from our buddy Mark Packer and Exterior Home Solutions.
It's one of those phone calls that you hate to get from your kids. Hey, Dad, a tree fell on my house. Well, we got that call a couple of weeks back from our daughter at her house here. And the first call that I made was to Exterior Home Solutions. The peace of mind that they gave me and us as a family when they came out here and came up with a plan, got us connected with the right people, is absolutely priceless. Use the same people that I use. In that time of need, Exterior Home Solutions.
Roofing, siding, windows, a garage. Contact Exterior Home Solutions today. Again, 865-524-5888.
Or call Mark Packer directly. His number is 865-805.
Was Packer wearing corduroys in that? I haven't seen that. I haven't seen since the Patty the Bear movie.
Would not shock me if he was wearing corduroys.
By the way, if anybody else got the other combination of his last 4 numbers, feel free to give him a call.
I'm expecting a commercial for the Patty the Bear corduroy collection.
And be sure to shoot him a text Friday night during the football game because he will text you back. I can promise you that. All right, let's have some fun here. This is from Sloppy Vol. He says, I know things can change. I know, during bowl prep and all that, things can change. But right now, AP, some over-unders. You ready?
Yes.
All right, the number's 1.5 for commits to Tennessee of these prospects.
Okay.
Daniel Hill, Cam Michael, Michael Smith, Jordan Seaton, Elias Williams, and Kai Bates.
I'm going to go over.
Over?
Ooh. I think they can get to 2 out of, 6 or 7 kids?
Yeah. You want to call your shots or you just want to leave it at over?
No, I'll just leave it at over.
How many of those are flips? Bates, Williams?
Bates would be a flip. Williams would be a flip. Smith would be a flip.
Yeah.
So 3 out of that. Okay.
Williams will be tough, but I mean, he's the guy. He's the bell cow. They love that kid.
Over under offensive linemen returning for 2024. 1.5 of Mays, Spraggins, Campbell, Mincy.
I'm gonna go over too.
Woo! Man, you're setting this up to be a really great offseason and forward momentum to 2024.
I mean, I think a lot of it just depends. I mean, any of the returners depend on their grade, and then what said player wants in an NIL deal. Like, I mean, and how much Tennessee covets to get them back. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, it's never just black and white. There's a lot of factors there. But I mean, I look at it and I think, out of those 4, I think it's kind of like, I think I'll go back to the recruiting one. I think you're definitely getting one of those. And I think there's about 3 other options there that are at least 50% to get a second. So it's easy to go over there. With the players, I think you're definitely getting one of those returners. And there's a couple, I think, that are going to be coin flips. And so it's just easier to go over right now than under because I think that, grades haven't come in for the draft.
Yeah, with that one specifically, I mean, you open the door for all those guys, but I mean, you go into next season with Nico, and then you have Cooper at center or Spraggins at guard. Goodness gracious, you're feeling good. And then lastly, over under a half, 0.5 on D linemen returning in 2024. Omar Norman Lott, Amari Thomas.
Oh, just out of those two.
Yeah. So essentially, is one of the two going to return?
I say yes.
All right. So AP is.
I feel less confident about that last question than I do the other ones.
Volquest, you out there and buy some mattresses.
Because a couple of weeks ago, you would feel more confident about D-line than O-line, in my opinion, right?
Well, yeah. The guys that could potentially leave, though, those two are the ones I think are more up in the air. Like, I think Bryson Easton's back. I think Elijah Simmons is back. You know, I've always thought Tyler Barron was out of here. I think he's played well enough. He's going to go. Those two are the ones that are kind of coin flips for me. And so you just, you know, I think Big O will be back, and I think it's a total coin flip on Omar Norman Lott.
Well done, AP. Good job. Pats on the back. Sam Smith, 22-33. How does Tennessee try and stop it?
The better thing would be to revisit my predictions at the end of December or early January.
Oh, trust me, the GQ will. They'll
get rid of it. And we'll see how I did, right? I mean, like,
there's about.
Particularly if you're wrong, the GQ will revisit your picks. If you got it right, it won't revisit very much.
No one will say if I got them right.
But there's a few hundred people with their red flags waiting to start their own progressive commercial with AP.
On that note, Belton Vols says, hey, Colin Coward does a segment weekly where he labels Colin was right, Colin was wrong. At this point in the season, where were you the most right and where were you the most wrong? We go around the room here. Brent, where were you the most right about what this team would be, and where were you the most wrong?
I think step forward on defense. Better in the defensive front. Didn't think James Pierce necessarily was going to do that, but I thought they were bringing so much experience back that they would be better in the defensive front. I think I said that in the preseason, so I feel pretty good about that one. Where was I wrong? I thought Dante Thornton would have an impact on this team, a bigger impact on this team in the passing game than what he's had. So those would be my two. There's others, but those would be the two that jump out.
Yeah, for me, I was 1,000,000% right on they were going to take a little bit of a step back on offense, bigger step forward on defense. I was 2,000,000% wrong on Dante Thornton. I wouldn't say I thought that Gabe Judy-Lally would by game 2 or 3 would be a starter, a locked-in starter, and he has been. So.
I was right I thought Tennessee would have one of the best, deepest, and versatile run games and rooms in the SEC. Spot on. I was also, to continue on with the theme, I was wrong about Dante Thornton to this point. We'll see if it can change. Rob Lewis?
I was right on not pushing the panic button on the offensive line as hard as some people. I mean, I did not think Tennessee was going to be leading the SEC in rushing at all. I'm not saying that. I just didn't think it was going to be a sieve like a lot of people did. And AP needs to give himself a little pat on the back because I don't remember. AP's the first person I remember on the Jaylen Wright train of it, not just us. I mean, anybody. Back into the summer.
I'll take that one. I'll take that one. And
will you?
Add to the Jaylen Wright deal, Eric, let's make sure you point out you were wrong that he wasn't going to average near double-digit yards per carry.
Now, I don't think you predicted that one out.
Well, for the third time you brought that up in a public setting this week, he's at 7.1 on the year. He's not at double digits, so technically I'm correct if we're being technical about it.
He's as close to 10 as he is to 5.
He's having a hell of a year, that's for sure. And again, I think if he got more volume, that average would obviously go down. So, I mean, it's kind of – you want to see him run the ball more.
Would it?
He's also stayed healthy for the first time.
Yes, you're right, Rob. He has stayed healthy for the most part.
He's stayed healthy for the first time since he's been here. So, I think the workload might have something to do with it.
He would be 1,000-yard rusher, I think, if he hadn't got dinged up and missed the whole 3 quarters of the whole game early in the year, and then he missed the second half basically, or much of the second half against Connecticut or Kentucky. He'd be close to 1,000-yard rusher at this point.
It's already over 800 yards, so you would think that.
I predicted in the Monday or the Tuesday night chat that he was going to run for 177 this week. That would get him over 1,000 for the year. He needs 174. So Let's get it done this week.
Hey, Eric, whenever AP brings up the whole 10 yards thing, which obviously he's hanging his hat on, you should fire back with, "Hey, I'm looking at the tackle chart, and I don't see Arian Carter leading the team in tackles."
You're 1,000, yeah, 100%. That was also they were asking us for a bold take. Let's go back and revisit that question. What's a bold take?
Is Arian Carter going to play this week, AP?
No.
Is he going to play next week?
No.
All right. We'll revisit this in Vanderbilt week. Let's go to Sam Smith. We were just talking about Jaylen Wright and Tennessee's run game, but what Missouri does well is the outside run. Rob, how's Tennessee going to stop that outside zone from Missouri and Cody Schrader, who Schrader, kind of the opposite. Jaylen Wright might be the best running back in the SEC, but his volume is way down. They give it to Schrader all the time. I mean, the other guy, their Cody Pete or whatever, is like less than half the amount of carries of Cody Schrader.
I mean, textbook answer, you got to set the edge. I mean, Tennessee's leading the SEC in run defense. I mean, it's not like they're going to have to do something out of character to keep Missouri in check this week. Now, Missouri, I haven't watched Missouri all year long, but yeah, they had some success last week against Georgia, getting around the corner, winning on the edge. But I mean, I just fall back on, Tennessee's giving up 97 yards a game. I mean, it's second week in November. Those numbers are not a fluke anymore when you play this many games, when you play this many SEC games. So to me, the challenge is on Missouri. How's Missouri going to run the ball in Tennessee?
Is Tennessee in for a rock fight Friday night at the Kohl Center? Who from the Fighting Badgers will present Tennessee the biggest challenge?
Man, I mean, Wisconsin is. I mean, they don't have any superstars. I am going to be really interested to see Tennessee's offense. How are they going to look against what the kind of defense that they're going to see from Wisconsin. It's obviously going to be a lot different than what they saw against Tennessee Tech. And on the road, this is a really weird, tough game to be played in game number 2. Don't you think
that game? That's why the Michigan State scrimmage is so big for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
That's what they lost on opening night. I'm just kidding.
Come on, don't be a hater. I mean, they were 20-15 last year. They bring back a lot of guys. I think they bring back 4 or 5 starters from that squad. They're veteran. They've got a system in place.
I'm going to be fascinated, Rob, to see how Tennessee's big men play.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, they were on the road at Michigan State, an environment that's great. They also got 12 fouls or whatever. I mean, they could just foul. They could foul at will and not get in trouble. So how do they play in this type of defensive game against Wisconsin's post players? I think that's going to be interesting to watch.
And Wisconsin's got 2 starters back in the post from last year's team. They're not spectacular athletes, but I mean, they're veterans. Have been around. Can Jonas Adu play physical? Like he's gonna. We know Tobey can when he's in the game. Can Jonas be a physical presence in there? And can Tennessee get away with playing small? That's kind of what I want to see a lot of nights when they play against power 6 competition. I mean, can they get away and make people? Can they win their share of battles with Josiah at the 4? Can they give people enough problems to where Rick doesn't have to not play that way and play with 2 bigs? And I think Wisconsin will be that's probably one of the things I'll be looking at the closest. Can Tennessee play small and get away with it against the traditionally sized team like they're going to see with Wisconsin in that front court?
And can Tennessee's bigs play physical, Eric, without fouling? Early in this game will be something to watch as well.
Volume Shooter, one of my favorite handles on this website. We got a couple more. We'll start with Volume Shooter. Most important players excluding Joe Milton on offense and defense for the Vols to beat the Tigers this weekend. AP, not Joe Milton. Who's your guy on offense? Your guy on defense?
Oh, offensively, I mean, I'm going to go Squirrel White because I think his ability to stretch the field, I think helps the running game immensely. And it's, to me, helped unlock the offense a little bit this year as the yards per attempt has grown. Defensively, I'm going to go Aaron Beasley. I think they'll get the ball out of Connor or out of Cook's hands, Brady Cook's hands. I call him Connor Cook. I don't know why. Out of
I
Brady
did the same thing.
Older Stallions. Just saying.
Yeah. Out of Brady Cook's hands really fast, which means I think you've got to bring the house a little bit in some kind of design stuff, and I think his ability to make plays as a blitzer, I think will kind of be a very big key in the game. So I'll go Aaron Beasley defensively.
I'm going to go McCollin Castles and where he's at with the tight end position because of what they ask him to do. I think you're seeing more, kind of more and more out of him a little bit. And I think he could be a factor in this game. And then defensively, I'm going to Marion McDonald because if I'm Missouri, I am trying to get Brown or Burden in the slot. And they move Burden around all over the place in the slot against Tamarion McDonald. Can Tamarion McDonald play coverage against the speed and the athletic ability of Burden?
And in that outside zone read, Tamarion McDonald's got to come up and make some tackles. He's got to set the edge, come up, make some tackles. He's going to be a huge part of the defensive game plan for Tennessee. So defensively, I'm with you, Tamarion McDonald. Offensively, I'm with AP. Give me Squirrel White. Rob?
I mean, after what we saw in September, give me Cooper Mays, offensively. I mean, I don't know that we'll be able to tell it with a naked eye, but I mean, he's got to have a good game for the ground game to click like it's going to need to. And defensively, I'm not going to pick one guy, just a pass rush. I mean, Missouri's been one of the best teams in the league protecting the quarterback. They've just given up 16 sacks in 9 games. Tennessee has not been getting home the last couple of weeks like they did, all for the first almost 2 months of the season. So give me a pass rush.
It's going to be a zoo, Rob. Definitely need your starting center because you're going to the zoo. Last one. Ball from afar. Would a win in Como be the best program win since Alabama last year? It's an interesting question. I know technically the LSU.
Yeah, give me Clemson in the bowl game.
Or I would tell you Texas A&M. I mean, just off pure talent.
Yeah.
The win at LSU was pretty big as well. I know that was technically
that wasn't since Missouri.
Before Alabama, though.
Yeah.
That wasn't since Missouri.
I'll just look at it the last 2 years. I bent the rules. To me, Mizzou and UT are incredibly similar. Can Jaylen Wright rush for 150? AP says 177. Mark it down. And will this be his signature game for NFL scouts? I think if Tennessee has a lead in the second half, this is something that Brent said on the Rocky Top Roundtable. This would be a great game just to ride Jaylen Wright in the second half, and you could see those yardage to kind of go up a little bit.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's going for 177. I think Tennessee's got to run for over 150 combined as a group. And to win this game, they have to be really good on the ground as they've been the last 2 years. I can't imagine Missouri's going to give up the type of yards they have the last 2 games, or the last 2 matchups that they've had with Tennessee. But Tennessee's got to run it. They've got to run it effectively. They're going to rotate their running backs. I think tempo is important. I think you're seeing tempo. I thought tempo had an effect against Kentucky. Can Tennessee play with that kind of tempo on the road, particularly in a place that's not generally really hostile, so you can communicate and go? That was a point of emphasis going into the Kentucky game, and I think that was a key in the fourth quarter to Dylan Sampson's success. Was not just Sampson's great play, but Kentucky was winded. I think Tennessee's got to tax and stretch Missouri as much as they can. You look at Missouri and their defensive stats. They don't play 15 defensive linemen or 12, 13 defensive linemen. Their rotation's a little smaller. Their rotation at linebacker is not very heavy. They don't play as many bodies on defense in their front seven as some other teams do. So can Tennessee kind of wear Missouri out in this game with their tempo and run game? I think is going to be something to watch in the second half.
You keep hating, Hubbard. This is my DeAndre Johnson moment.
Okay.
177.
You pulled that one.
Listen. Okay, look. You're saying Jaylen Wright is your DeAndre Johnson. I mean, Jaylen Wright leads the guy's got almost 1,000 yards.
But predicting 177. Come on, it's not going to predict him to go for 110.
Well, but here's the thing: he could go for 177 if he's going to get more than 12 carries. I mean, is he going to get 15, 18 carries in a game for the first time this season?
And also, I think those might have been DeAndre Johnson's first 3 sacks of his career before
nobody even knew DeAndre Johnson was on that team heading into the South Carolina game.
And nobody still does.
Does he still got eligibility like Carlin Fields Ames?
Now, AP, what's the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, AP, let's hear it.
I walked by that Letterman's Ball the other day, and I just looked up, and the name it stood out to me. And I literally said it to myself. I mean, Carlin Fields Ames. And I laughed out loud.
I mean, he's still playing college football somewhere. I don't know how, but he's apparently still on a team somewhere. I saw that on the GQ.
Never forget the end around on 4th and 2. They tried to run with him and it got stuffed. I forgot what game that was, but all name team for sure. Exterior Home Solutions, an all-star team that can be there for you as well for home renovations, upgrades, all that and more. A free estimate. Give them a call today at 865-524-5888. Roofing, siding, windows, or garage. Contact Exterior Home Solutions today. Appreciate you guys sending in questions for the Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, and Austin Price with the Christmas tree. Tennessee at Missouri, just days away. We got all the pregame coverage, all the preview coverage right here at Volquest.com.